Thanks for logging on to Wayne.com. Glenn Marini back here, Blake Sebring over there. I know some people are disappointed, but what can you do? That's the story of my life. Let's talk about the Komets, because kind of a disappointing weekend.
Yeah,
if you're looking at the schedule, you're thinking maybe we can make some hay. They don't do it. They've played Cincinnati well at their place. Not necessarily the case this past weekend.
I think, again, it shows you it's goaltending. I mean, it really does depend on the goaltending. You know, the mistakes that they were making, Pat Nagel's been able to erase so far. And Saturday night, the mistakes were so bad, nobody could erase them. And Sunday, kind of the same thing for Sean Bonar, trying to make his debut as a Komet, and he played well, but he didn't get any help.
When you take a look at how important Nagel has been, I mean, he played, up until Sunday, he played 15 straight in goal for the Komets, which is amazing because, one, you've been healthy that whole time and playing well that whole time. Secondarily, for a guy like Nagel to have been in a Komets uniform for that stretch of time has almost been rare. So how important is he to what the Komets are trying to do going forward, and how much of a hit would it be? Would he be the most important person that could possibly be called up from this Komets team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's the MVP so far, and it's really not even close. Partly that's because the balance is so much on offense, but yeah, he's been great. I mean, how many games has he saved where it didn't even come down to the final minute because he'd already made 3 really big saves earlier, you know?
The one stat that really stuck out to me about this week is the Komets are 15-0 when leading heading into the third period. That has a lot to do with Nagel and a lot to do with just kind of the mental toughness, I guess, of this team to not give up a lead. But what do you make of a statistic like that when you're taking and breaking down this Komets team?
I really don't, because if you go through the ECHL, there aren't many comebacks in the third period. There just aren't. It's not a bad thing, obviously, but it's not a great thing either. It's kind of like, oh, isn't that expected type of thing. So I really don't. If they're losing some of those games, that's when you know there's a big problem defensively. So I don't put as much stock into that one as I do maybe some others, like the penalty kill, the power play, the shots against, and how that goes.
Well, here's another number then I want to throw at you, because if they're leading after the first period, they're 14-3 on the season. So, I mean, it's like they're good at the end. If they're good at the beginning, they're going to win. So what does that really say to you if you're analyzing what the Komets have done this season to see, hey, 14-3 after leading after the first?
Well, let's look at it this way. 2 weeks ago, we talked about second period being more important for this team than first period. They got off to horrible first period starts this week. They just didn't, it wasn't there. For whatever reason, it wasn't there. But they usually played okay in the second, except they didn't do that in Cincinnati Saturday night. They fell apart Saturday
night. Had a really good second period Friday night.
Friday night, right, exactly. I mean, they've been having great second periods, but they have not been a fast starting team this year for whatever reason. Like, if you go back and look at Pat's numbers over this 15 games, most of his shots have come against in the first period. And then things tighten up from there, and then they tighten down where some games he had as many shots in the first period as he had in the second and third combined. Which is not bad for a goalie because you want to get into it and get the rhythm going right away. But that's not necessarily a good thing for a hockey team.
8-3 in the month of January. What does that tell you? Because every year in January, because you got the circus coming in, you know you're going to be playing a ton of road games, back-to-back road games in maybe different cities. That was the case this weekend on Saturday, Sunday. So what does that tell you, 8-3 in January already, knowing that a good bulk of the schedule is going to be on the road?
Well, and that's what always happens in January with the Komets. It's like it takes them a while. I wrote a column a couple weeks ago about how it just takes them a while because every season starts fresh. Even if you've got 12, 14 guys back from the year before, it doesn't matter. You've got to start all over. You can't think, okay, we're just going to pick it up from there. It just doesn't work because the chemistry is such a critical thing on a hockey team that even the 6 new guys got to figure out where they fit and how it works, and am I going to like this system? How much am I going to trust this system? It takes 3-4 months to figure that out. So every January, it seems like that's when they get hot. And partly that's because they go on the road, the circus trip, but they just seem to really figure it out and come together after Christmas break and then step on it and go.
When you take a look at this Midwestern division, how much of it is, I'll play the devil's advocate to a certain degree, how much of it is the Komets are good, or the rest of this division is bad? Because if you want to look at the Indy Fuel, they're essentially still an expansion team to a certain degree. Cincinnati, they're kind of historically known for, at the end throwing a couple of guys down and then, adding to their roster late and then being good, in the playoffs when it counts. Quad City, we've seen them before in a different league. They've never really been all that good. And Evansville, obviously things are not stable there. They're moving to Owensboro. So
yeah, maybe.
I mean, you can pick apart all the teams in this in this division and say, maybe they're not that good. How good are the Komets? How good is everybody else?
What were we talking about earlier? You have to start from scratch. It really doesn't matter what the history is with any of these teams because the roster turnover is so much. It's ridiculous. I mean, we've seen Cincinnati come in like in previous Decembers, and then the following Friday they'll have 10 new guys. I mean, that's just the way this league works. It's the goaltending. Remember, Cincinnati had Brad Thiessen early, and he was dominant. I mean, he was one of the best goalies in the league, and he got called up. He hasn't been there lately. They've struggled. Whitney's played a little bit better. He played really well for the most part Saturday night. So it's the goaltending. Quad City's goalie just got called up to Iowa, so we'll see how they do in the next couple weeks. And part of it is, too, is the division standings really don't mean anything because you don't play a balanced division schedule. I mean, I think they play Quad City 7 times or 6 times, and the last 4 games are in Fort Wayne. And so, how good are they? We don't know.
Right.
Nobody knows.
A lot of when you catch them, especially in this league.
Exactly. When the Komets were hot is when they were all healthy and they didn't have any call-ups. Well, last week they had call-ups, and hey, they're a different team. They're struggling a little bit.
Well, everybody's good when they don't have call-ups.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can put together a streak in this league if you're healthy because nobody else is. Speaking
of streaks, Brett Perlini. He had a 13-game scoring streak or point streak snapped. That 13-game streak was the second longest in the ECHL this year. With Brett Perlini, what is it about him that makes him good? How critical is he to the Komets' success long-term this season? What does he bring?
Oh, he's big, and that's the thing. He's big. He's a big guy. As a center, that's really something that you don't find that many of at the AA level is centers with size who can still skate, and he has that. And plus, he likes going to the net. I mean, the tap-in goal he had last week, was just a great goal. I mean, that was against Rapid City, and it was the one that won the game for him essentially. He's big and he likes to go to the net, and it was fun to watch him this weekend. I thought with Embach and Sedlowski for the first time. Those guys hadn't played together in quite a while. It'll be interesting to see if that line sticks together when guys start coming back from the AHL. It'll be interesting. We'll see. I don't know. But having another big center is huge.
The continued success of special teams for these Komets, they've been good on the power play. Mike Embach, 9 power play goals, leads the ECHL. That's kind of been the standard, but the penalty kill just keeps getting better. A month ago it was 7th. Now they've climbed all the way to 2nd best in terms of killing off penalties. What is it that's allowed them to do that? What is it that you've seen that has allowed them to improve when they were good to now they're at the great level?
It's confidence. It really is. Like, they are confident enough now that they are not thinking about it. They're just reacting, and they're just going with it. They know what they're supposed to do. They've got their sticks in the passing lanes. They blocked a ton of shots. I mean, the forwards are blocking shots, too. I mean, it's like every power play, you see some forward block a shot and limp to the bench. And the defensemen have been doing that all year. So it's block shots, it's confidence, and it's just knowing what they're doing. I mean, it's like they have developed the ability to take away from the opposing power play whatever their strength is. Maybe it's getting the puck into the zone and getting control of it. They've been standing guys up at the blue line just great. So they got to dump it in, and then Nagel stops it, and they beat the defenseman beats them to it and kicks it back out, and then they got to start over. It's like all those things that the people were doing to the Komets power play early on. Now the Komets are doing it to their power play.
When you look forward to what their schedule looks like this week, you got Cincinnati, a team, obviously they played twice last weekend, so they're very familiar with what they have. Coming into Fort Wayne on Friday night. Then you go to Toledo, which has always been, those have been fun games. And then you've got
always a tough place to play.
Right, and then you've got at Kalamazoo.
Boy, they've been struggling.
On Sunday. Yeah, so what do you see as being the biggest keys for this week? And if you're Gary Graham, who just turned 37, congratulations on the birthday, Gary, what do you think they need to be focusing on practice this week to get ready for 3 games over the weekend, 2 of which are on the road.
The biggest thing is they got to really work on their defensive assignments. They blew so many the last 2 games, just leaving Pat out to dry. I mean, some of those goals were just, nobody could have stopped them. You got to give them a chance at least. And I think some of that could be fatigue because they were playing with 4 defensemen after Beaupre got hurt and Southorn got hurt Saturday. That's going to happen. Just blow that off, but really refocus on it a little bit, tighten it up again. And I want to see better first periods. I really want to see a better effort from the start because they're doing it in the second period. So I want to see they got to figure that out. They can't be so predictable because some team's going to come in and jump on them and get a couple goal lead, and then what happens? They really need to tighten up the first periods.
Well, you mentioned a couple guys that I wanted to touch on before we wrap this thing up. Health-wise, they've been a relatively healthy hockey club throughout the course of the season.
Well, for the first November was awful.
But December through January.
Yeah, lately they've been
really healthy considering this is the part of the meat of the season.
You lose Garrett Thompson, and you lose Alex Belzile. You could argue, along with Sidlowski and Mbach, that those are 2 of the top 4 forwards. They've been playing fantastic, and they're both gone. And okay, how do you replace that? That's hard. And maybe they'll be back. Maybe they won't this week. You don't know.
It's been more call-ups than injuries, which is, nice to have because you do have the option to bring them back, or could get them back. Jordan Southwood, the concussion. How is that going to affect him going forward? We've seen, obviously, he's a very talented player.
He's a fearless player, too.
And Beaupre, what do you see injury-wise? Was an upper body injury for him?
I'm guessing it was the same thing they're not saying.
Okay.
That was a really rough couple games there for that. You know what? I tell you what, it's not a bad thing at this point of the year. This is going to sound sacrilegious, but it's not a bad thing right now to sit guys for a couple weeks, let them get some rest, heal up, get their legs back, and then bring them back maybe. That's not a bad thing to happen right now because the schedules after this week, they got 4 and 5 this week if you include the Brampton game on Tuesday next in the AM, all right? And then they only have 1 game on Saturday, okay? And then you grind. For the rest of the year, you got 4 and 5 almost every week. It's just a grind. So it's not a bad time right now maybe to sit guys for a couple games and let them heal up. Drew Daniels didn't get to play in Chicago in the AHL, but that might not have been a bad thing for him because he could rest up a little bit, get the bruises down, come back fresh, maybe be mentally fresh as much as physically fresh too for some of the guys. So this is not a bad thing, maybe this is the time to have that happen, so that everybody's sharp coming down the stretch here. Because, after the next week and a half,
it's a gauntlet.
It all flies. Yeah, it's a grind. It's going to be ridiculous. And then you throw in that trip to Alaska and Colorado and Rapid City, and then you come back from that, have a game in Evansville, the next one, which I think the guys would rather go to Alaska again than have to drive down to Evansville again.
Yeah, that's true. That's a rough trip.
It is. It's hard.
It seems like it wouldn't be because it's in state, but no, it is.
No, it's hard. You can get to Wheeling, West Virginia quicker than you can get to Evansville from Fort Wayne.
That is amazing. Final thoughts for you this week.
I really want to see them step up in the first period. I really want to see that keep going. I want to see them react to that and try to make that their cause and pick things up. Right now they're playing so well on the power play and the penalty kill. It's like they're so confident with that. I don't think that's going to stop. Even if they have a game where they give up 2 power play goals or they don't score any power play goals for a couple games, I think they're going to be fine there because the way they operate, even when they don't score, they're getting chances every power play, which, man, in November and early December, they couldn't get chances for nothing. But they're getting excellent scoring chances now. I want to see the defense, and I mean that, the forwards. I want to see how they're reacting defensively. Are they getting back enough? Are they hustling back to help out the defensemen? All
right, so a lot to look forward to about this week. We got them home on Friday, then a couple of road games, and then a lot of intensity as it cranks up here in the ECHL as we go down the stretch. That'll do it for Blake and myself. We'll see you next Monday here on Inside the Zone.